Welcome to LT Innovate's ValueCast on how knowledge graphs empower intelligent content solutions. I'm now extremely happy to pass on to Matthias Hein, who will be one of the co-moderators today, and he is going to introduce the webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. And thank you very much, especially for organizing and facilitating this event. I hope you can all see my slide perfectly for this. And first of all, another thank you to our expert team of presenters. We had some quite inspiring discussion that preceded this event today. And so I'm very confident that this will be very interesting for all of you. And thanks for your time as listener and participants, for your interest in spending the time with us here on this particular topic. We are addressing something that I think is quite relevant at this moment in time, because we have a convergence between what technology enables us and plans that have been rooted in the sphere of content and knowledge for quite a while. And we have three people here today who will contribute to this topic from different point of views. This will be quite complementary, I think, for all of you. Semantics and enterprise knowledge graphs, they add some very unique benefits for content, especially for organizations when you are utilizing structured content. So we will have discussions around these key concepts, knowledge graphs, structured content, and how they play together to give a way more intelligent use of content. This is something that plays into things like different content types that can benefit from these mechanisms, like product information, marketing engagements, things that play into how employees are enabled to do a better job. This plays into how content is more findable, can be more discovered, of content that benefits different audiences in a more intelligent way. And it gives more accurate information and recommendations to people. There are many aspects, and this will be addressed quite in more detail by our speakers in a moment. I would like to bring one remark back to our attention that was done by Ann Rockley, who is quite well known in the content sphere. She did this already in 2014, and she said something like, intelligent content is content that is structurally rich and semantically categorized, therefore automatically discoverable, reusable, reconfigurable, and adaptable. And I think we're really at a verging point where this becomes more reality. So we have three speakers who will be enlightening us on these topics. The first speaker will be a colleague of mine, Joe Perman, who is Senior Product Manager here at AWS. And the topic of his love is Trading Docs, a product that we will strive on within this presentation. But Joe is foremost product manager. He has a track record of building some quite innovative solutions in the past, doing some personalization guidance apps that helped a lot of people without requiring any of their data. He's been acting as the product manager of Trillion Docs. He is really bringing our solutions to market for new use cases, for new users, for new user sectors. has a very analytical mind. You will see that in a moment. He has brought, for example, our solutions to an audience that, for example, has difficulties in the context of structured authoring to use complex editing systems. He has done very amazing things in terms of allowing for interfaces to have experts to contribute their knowledge within a team. And he brings people together and shapes vision, plans, and priorities. We're really, really proud to have him with us and present us and do an introduction to intelligent content solutions. And he will talk about terminologies and taxonomies and will frame the topic for us in a moment. After Joe, I'm very happy to have Andreas Blumauer presenting to us. Andreas is CEO and managing partner of Semantic Web Company for 15 years. He's responsible for corporate strategy and strategic business development, and I think it's quite known that he has been a pioneer in the field of semantic AI since 2001. Andreas is as well the editor of the first comprehensive book in the area of semantic web and author of this knowledge graph cookbook. We're going to address that in the end of this presentation. And he's very experienced as a consulting in this field. So don't be shy to reach out to him if this topic is of further interest to you. He has been with Pool Party Technology Platform and has quite contributed to the platform in various capacities. And we will, after the introductory parts from Joe, move over to Andreas, who will then more focus on the knowledge graphs part within a corporate environment and speak from his expertise. And then we will, after that, complement these presentations by André Schlotz, who will give us a use case and a deep dive into an industry application. André is a graduated mechanic engineer. He is holding various positions in automotive manufacturing. He's been working in product development, customer service, process organization, and he joined us in AWS in 2013 and has ever been a very intuitive and inspirational colleague of mine. He has more of 20 years of experience in process consulting, planning, implementation, with a focus point in automotive and manufacturing industry. And that's where he is actually responsible today. And if you are specifically interested in these use cases, again, don't be shy, reach out to André. There is a host of knowledge when it comes to applying these mechanisms, these techniques, and in this client space. So we begin with Joe, who will give us an introduction to knowledge graphs and to how taxonomies play into this, and then we'll hand it over to Andreas and then to André. Please enjoy, and if you have questions, keep them, lock them in the chat, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. So Joe, the floor is yours.
I think you're still muted, Joe.
Yeah, mute yourself.
Oh.
How are we doing now? Do we have audio? Very good. Okay,
We got you.
that's great. Thank you, Matthias, for the effusive introduction. So we have these two concepts in the title: how to use knowledge graphs for intelligent content solutions. One or both of those may be unfamiliar terms to you, but as knowledge graphs are the thing that are supposed to drive intelligent content, it seems intelligent content is the result we're striving for. So let me define this first. So what is intelligent content? Let's look at intelligence first of all, the ability to learn or understand or to deal with new or trying situations. And I think this is kind of useful, actually, this particular definition of intelligence, because it implies something about flexibility, the ability to, as it says, deal with new situations. How about intelligent content? And Matthias gave that nice definition by Ann Rockley. There's another kind of style of defining it, which has become quite popular. This is one particular formulation of it. You may have heard other combinations, but something like the right content to the right person at the right time on the right device in the language of their choice. So what can we gather from this? So that I think, first of all, it's not that we can kind of go to a website or a mobile app and say, is this intelligent content or not? Because it seems to be something that's highly contextual, isn't it? It's something that's appropriate to us at a particular point in time. And I would be more specific about that content aspect, because certainly in our world, content management for kind of serious solutions, it's content to achieve a purpose, and that pretty much means it's to enable you to make a decision, whether that be kind of marketing content that's helping you make a product purchase decision, or very often it's kind of enablement content to help you to do something in your job. If you're an accountant, maybe it's the guidelines to help you apply the accounting standards. If you're an engineer, it's the guidelines to help you perform your job with a particular piece of machinery, and so on and so on. So, but this is a little bit abstract, I would say, right content at the right place at the right time. Let's try and get a bit more concrete. And the way to do that is to eliminate, say, well, what isn't intelligent content? And so, well, if we are faced with kind of just a list of very big kind of monolithic PDFs, well, perhaps this isn't intelligent content these days. If I just have a big product catalog and I have to kind of scroll through this thing and find the actual product I'm interested, that's not typically what we mean by intelligent content in this sense. How about content that is the wrong shape for the device? So far from being on the right device at the right time, it's actually not really working very well on my device at all. So I can't see anything useful there. Not terribly intelligent. I am being a little bit prejudicial here. I hope nobody gets offended, but I might call this kind of dinosaur intelligence, in that it's really a little bit crude. It's not the sophistication that we would be looking for according to those definitions that we saw. How about something else over here? Is it these tiny snippets of information? It kind of could be, but there's something almost robotic about this style of content. How do I switch between home screens? You can switch or see your home screens by swiping the screen to the left or right. Why do I want to? What does it enable me to do? In what context? It's very kind of decontextualized, and I feel it's a bit robotic. Maybe it's intelligence of some sort. Is it human intelligence? Another thing, personalization, which we've all experienced, we've all been the subject of in sites like Amazon, for example. And so Amazon is doing its usual thing. It's trying to apply some intelligence by recommending me to buy 4 more of the thing that I just already bought, which you say that's not terribly intelligent. Maybe there's some intelligence being applied, but again, it's not really human. Can I call that alien intelligence, maybe? And then what about if you've got content that's actually quite purposeful? It's around the right size of content, if you like, to serve a useful purpose. So that's good. It's kind of almost nascent intelligence. But here, it's disconnected in a way. This is a particular experience I had when I was looking for a ticket to take my family back to Taiwan to visit the in-laws. I was looking, first of all, for the legal regulations of taking kids on a plane, something about the child seats. So I found the information I needed, but later, by chance, I saw this other page, which was about a family couch. You could basically pay a bit more a bit more money on your ticket, and get this really nice couch, which is some seats joined together. And the kids could have slept for that whole journey, that whole 14-hour journey from England to Taiwan. But I missed that. So I was looking at the content about the conditions of carriage for kids, and somehow it wasn't linked to this really useful other piece of marketing content. So legal and marketing content was disconnected. They missed out on an extra sale, like an upsell. I missed out on a nicer journey. So kind of disconnected content, a more kind of simple experience that a lot of us will have had in this kind of disconnectedness. I'm searching here for anti-competitive practices on the Federal Trade Commission website. This is something that they absolutely, this is kind of their heartland. It's something they really know about. And yet somehow this isn't getting what I want to see. I've got some random results that really aren't it. It's only when I realize they might spell it in a different way without a space that then I get the results. So again, it's this sense of disconnectedness. The content's kind of almost there, but it's just not connected in the way that I would seek. So it's almost pre-intelligence, if you like. So how do we start to fix this? First of all, it's a structural thing. And you know, I'm product manager for Trillion Docs, which really its kind of lifeblood is about structuring content modularly, so that you can not only write it in an industrial kind of process to say, you write and you review and you translate each module separately, so that you can speed up your content development in that sense, but also to say that these are now very purposeful chunks of content that you should be able to deliver as appropriate to the users that need them at a particular point in time. So I think that's part of the story indeed for intelligent content. And this kind of alien intelligence where we try and chuck, you know, the combined forces of machine learning and all sorts of kind of atomization, I think we need to be a little bit careful with this, particularly in our realm where the content can actually have really significant kind of consequences. If it's legal content and you get it wrong, you know, you've got legal problems. If it's operating a big mining machine or something, as with some of our customers, again, if you get that wrong, you might even have health and safety concerns. So let's keep humans making the ultimate decisions. When we use technology, let's use it to scale up human power rather than trying to replace that, since so far that hasn't worked terribly well. And then finally, this thing in the middle about the disconnections between pieces of content. Let's somehow empower these human decisions and make these connections using knowledge. Very, very broad word here. What do I actually mean by that? Well, I think hopefully as I go through the rest of this little presentation, you'll start to see that. But really, it's about connecting the core concepts that we're talking about in that content, applying them in a kind of a machine readable way, but in a way that we can understand these models. We can use these models to drive more intelligent experiences. And we start with the very foundation of a knowledge graph, more of a knowledge model. And funnily enough, we start from that terminology point that we kind of hinted at earlier, where we saw the anti-competitive with or without a space. And you might have different versions of that. You might have different ways to say the same thing. And of course, you will have different languages of this. So these are all the kind of the ingredients of understanding the important things that we're talking about in our content. Very important. We can call them the labels, if you like. And then, but the thing is, the labels on their own are not enough. You know, we can try and apply some cleverness to the way that we map them to searches and so on. But unless we really understand what they signify, they're not going to get us very far. So the next ingredient in this kind of core knowledge model, the way we do this in a standards-based way to build knowledge models to power our content, is define the key concepts. So we say we map these things together. So this term boot or launch or bring up means the same core concept. And it's equivalent in Chinese, which I won't attempt to read. My pronunciation's not that great, but trust me, it means the same thing. You know, it's the same core concept. I've now given that an identifier. It's not a very helpful identifier. You can't read it, but that's kind of the point, is to say somehow now I've defined it in a machine understandable way. All these mean the same concept, and that's going to come in very useful later on. The same with power up. Once we've defined these key concepts, these key things, then of course we need to map them, first of all to our content, but also with each other. So I can understand that boot is in some way related to power up. And even these labels, technically, they're defined by relationships to that core concept. So a very, very powerful thing here. Andreas will talk a little bit more about this later, so I'm not going to overdwell on this point. But those three things, the labels, the concepts, the relationships, they're the real ingredients of a knowledge model, which is your foundation for building a knowledge graph to improve your customer experience. So practical steps. how can you kind of go about this? And this is a problem that I've kind of applied myself to a lot over the last couple of years, and we have as an organization in RWS in a very kind of fruitful strategic partnership with the Semantic Web Company, who are the producer of the pool party software. And Andreas will talk a little bit more about that later. But essentially, their whole kind of reason of being, if you like, is working with knowledge graphs, working with semantic data in this sense, which is all about understanding the core concepts. So not pure machine learning in the sense that you're getting the machines to kind of try and post hoc figure out the patterns of everything. It's actually having these knowledge models which both machines and humans can understand. So you start this journey by building a knowledge model, and in some software like this, so this pool party thesaurus management interface, and you build up these concepts in a very kind of friendly fashion, but exactly the same kind of concepts that I was talking about earlier. So here I have the concept of insurance company. I'm not sure if you can see the tiny little identifier underneath it, but trust me, this is like a unique identifier. It says, not only do I understand this concept in my company, but because this comes from a public standard, it's from Eurovoc, very popular kind of standard public taxonomy in the European Union, I can actually use this to communicate outside my company to different organizations. So a true kind of federated approach to knowledge. But then how does this relate to actual content as we know it and editors and authors would know it? So we have to design a nice experience for actually putting this into practice and saying, how do I make that relationship between the content and the concepts it represents? And this is a lot of what we've been spending our time on over the last kind of 18 months at least in the product, in the Tridium products. I'm not going to go on a lot about the product now, but I think we have some links at the end of the whole presentation where you can find out more. But for now, you see I've got this nice, easy editing interface. I've got a little button that says suggest tags, and I've just pressed that, and here I get my tags against various kind of categories or facets that they apply to. These are coming actually from that standard taxonomy, and it's matching against the concepts that it finds in the text. And suggesting them. And I have complete control, so I'm that human in the loop. I can say, no, these don't apply, some of them. I can add more from the big taxonomy, but it's a very friendly way to do it, very approachable way. If I update my taxonomy, my knowledge model, and then I reapply tags, it's going to let me know where it updates. So I'm always kind of in control. I'm always being notified, but I get the power of the kind of machine assistance to speed things up. Because I haven't showed you what Eurovoc itself looks like the whole taxonomy, but it's massive and a little bit intimidating. So it's not something that you would want to just directly expose to all of your authors like that. So tagging, very important. Then how do you go about actually combining that into an end user experience that is more intelligent? Search is a crucial thing, of course, as we know, and so many search experiences aren't very nice, like that one I saw on the Federal Trade Commission. So here for a start, I'm typing in auto insurance to my search, and I have a nice faceted experience. I can filter it by different kind of criteria here. The difference here between this and any other faceted search experience you could build, like search filters, is that these are directly powered by that centralized knowledge model. And whenever I update it, whenever I update those labels, or I even decide to organize things differently, because I tagged the content with its core kind of identifier, nothing breaks when I change it. I don't have to go in and edit the content. I just change those labels as is most appropriate now, and all of that is just going to seamlessly update here. So I'm saving myself time. I'm also preventing risk that my terminology gets out of sync and so on. Also, I get some nice suggestions by the same token, because I know that about these concepts now. If a user enters one term, I can suggest other things which are the appropriate terms that we use, and they can get some hints about related content to look for here. But simply landing on the right search result isn't all of creating a really nice, intelligent experience. For many of our end users, coming to a decision in their work is going to involve a number of content resources. It might be a few web pages, maybe a PDF, could be a video, could be various things that they need to finally make their decision. So how do we help that so they don't keep bouncing back up to this search? where we can use this semantics again to intelligently suggest related content to them. So you see at the bottom of this page, we've got some suggestions. And these are not just kind of naive suggestions based on one criterion. They're based on the intersection of, these pages are all tagged with a user goal, a particular type of product, a domain, it might be some geography. So matching on all those criteria to give you a nice suggestion on the personalization there. And in this way, we've started with requiring no kind of user data. It's not that intimidating kind of personalization, but we've started with something that feels quite helpful in terms of recommendations. And you can build up on that. Of course, if I know your user role and you've consented to share that with me, I can help to improve those suggestions. If your session data, like where you've been elsewhere on the website in this session, if we have that, of course, we can further improve it. And all the way to the full-blown kind of customer data platform. If you as an organization delivering content to end users has the permission and the whereabouts to have a customer data platform, you can add this into the mix, but the point is you don't have to start there. You don't need all this huge kind of power to just start with some nice personalization. Just very quickly, as I've got this intelligence embedded in the content, I can now power nicely kind of chatbot experiences and so on. So this is really future-proofing the content against kind of all future demands you might make on it. I just want to wrap up. I wanted to kind of inspire and kind of set the ground for the more detailed presentations that Andreas and Andre will give. Just wanted to mention one thing at the end, the sample work that we're already doing with customers, medical information, where each user needs to get the right kind of information and exclude the wrong information, which could be very damaging, of course, in a medical context. And so we're using this combination of structured content, componentized content with knowledge models and knowledge graphs to make sure that end users get exactly the right kind of content for their particular conditions and situations. So true intelligent content in that sense. Another one, industrial applications. This kind of foreshadows what Andre is going to talk about as well. But again, it's making sure that from one kind of entry point, you're getting all the relevant content. You're combining these different sources so that ultimately your end user, like a field service engineer, is going to be able to make a complete decision to basically do their job with your content in an intelligent and smooth way. So avoiding all those kind of symptoms of unintelligence that we saw earlier. In a way, in this sense, the content kind of disappears. It's truly about the user and the decision that they're able to make. So intelligent content isn't something that kind of jumps up and says, I'm intelligent. It's kind of noticeable by the fact that it seamlessly does its job and you can get on with life. Thank you. So I'm looking forward to seeing Andreas's presentation now.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Joe. That was a great introduction to this topic of what is intelligent content, how can it be used, and we get more and more into this concrete use case scenarios, culminating in a very concrete one provided by Andre. I will kind of bridge this, taking it from the approach, explaining a little bit more how to get there, and then eventually you will see what exactly will be done, for instance, in the manufacturing industry. So I can introduce myself using a graph, for instance, just to give you another example why knowledge graphs are helpful just to deliver information. So this is, of course, a way to visualize connections between things, but it already also gives you probably one learning I would like to share with you. Knowledge graphs are not just for visualization. This is a well-maintained myth out there that people believe this is about visualizing knowledge. That's not true. So knowledge graphs are essentially an additional, not replacing, but additional layer on top of your content and data layer, which brings together all the different concepts you will find, all the different business objects you have in your repositories. They will be brought together by the knowledge graph. And so here you see, for instance, just a couple of things on one page, like Semantic Web Company is the place I'm working, which is the developer of the Pool Party suite, which integrates with Tridion. I myself have written a book which is about the same standards which are used by Pool Party, which can be used to build out taxonomies, ontologies, which are actually the components of a knowledge graph, which then build the basis for several smart applications, like, for instance, recommender systems, search engines, as Joe has shown just before. So this is a quick introduction to myself using a graph. And now I also want to provide you with a, let's say, big picture. So why is all that so interesting and so important? In essence, it's about creating holistic views on our data. So we all have suffer from a systemic crisis, which is triggered by the disconnectedness of information. And it starts on the technical layer. Our repositories are silos. They're not really providing us with holistic views on our business objects. In reality, our daily work consists of data integration done manually. So I call that desktop data integration. And that's not a great idea. It doesn't scale out. And enterprises really should try their best to provide an infrastructure to their knowledge workers who are really in strong need of such holistic views. And we believe this is really at the core of digital transformation. This is one of the most important tasks enterprises have to fulfill. And you see here 4 areas of activity, which are typically the starting points to create eventually an enterprise 360. You will see all those areas will get connected more and more. And as you can imagine, we believe that knowledge graphs are the technology of your choice to make that happen. I'll give you a couple of examples why this will trigger business value, why linking business objects in a meaningful way help to drive your business. So from the customer side, for instance, we're talking about ways how customers, based on their individual needs, get guidance to assemble products into bundles, really, which meet their individual needs. So this is what many people call recommender systems, for instance, and we know that from e-commerce quite frequently it's used there. We will also see graphs work differently when driving recommender systems, like for instance, collaborative filtering is used as a method to drive recommender. Then another area of activity typically is Market 360. So how can you create better market intelligence using knowledge graphs? Linking together information around competitors, new trends, patterns, probably new research, demographic data. All that is what we call Market 360. If you put that together into one knowledge hub, for instance, you can really create better products and be prepared for the future ahead of us. Then Product 360 here, we get, for instance, the ability to learn from our customers, to understand what they actually have found out during the usage of our products. Using, for instance, the ticket system could be a great source of truth. Linking that back to the Customer 360 systems where behavior can be probably used to better understand the actual usage scenarios. Plus, it can also drive, for instance, strategic HR management. So finding out which skills are needed can also be partly derived from Market 360, and then strategically developed skills of employees, helping them to find the projects they probably should work on. And all that is always about linking data and recommending different business objects to get close and related to each other. This is how you can essentially then create such a 360 environment where you see all these areas eventually come together. Now I drill down a little bit more to a very specific and detailed example. I've seen in the chat, someone of you have already asked, is this about marketing? Is this about content intelligence or marketing rather And I would say it's all of that, because what actually happens is we want to bring together different content streams. And if you look at the arrows in between the different areas of activity, those arrows indicate how the content flow typically works like. So let's say we create a new product or a new release of a product. What happens is the engineering team probably starts to describe it very much in detail, like in the software industry. Alex from the engineering team would come up with a description of a new release, of a new feature. Kim probably would translate that into a technical documentation, which then is the source for Frank. And Ashok, the customer, probably would like to get in touch with different resources, mainly starts maybe from the marketing perspective, then will start to read the technical documentation, etc. What frequently happens is that the content is not necessarily connected. So it's from an end user perspective, sometimes inconsistent even, or at least not that easily, you're not able to connect it sometimes. So why is that? Because I don't think that it's contradicting in the majority of the cases, but those different content streams are just using, as we all know, different terminology, and there's no such a, let's say, controlled vocabulary in place during the content creation time. And if all these different content authors and writers would use probably different terminology because of the knowledge level you need to understand, but still using the same concepts behind the terms, which in essence is really what the knowledge graph is all about, then eventually the customers would get a highly consistent content experience. The user experience in general would benefit a lot. And eventually even the legal department and their requirements, like Rob's requirement, would get connected, for instance, to other documents, and by that all things work together nicely. And this is based on recommender systems. Content recommendation is here the essential driver. And as I've said before, there are actually two ways to run recommender systems. What we know from e-commerce platforms is collaborative filtering. Works greatly if you have millions of users typically. So similarity is recognized by similar behavior. And then if the one has already consumed content or product, then it will be recommended to the same-minded end users. But this doesn't work in the content professionals world. We need something which really goes down to the actual semantics of the content, and that can be greatly done by graph-based filtering, which is the mechanism behind all that, based on semantic tagging, which then again is based on knowledge graphs. So you can really go beyond similarity only. Just showing always the same or similar content doesn't work. You sometimes need complementary information, and you can generalize that by matching articles. So this is what graphs can do very well, recommending articles or content which matches to something else the user is currently, for instance, reading. Okay, so let's take a look at the use cases. 4 use cases following these principles of the Enterprise 360 structure. I start with Employee 360. Employee 360, for instance, could help, like in that case, companies to find those people with those skills which fit nicely to certain requirements. So if there's a project requirements specifying a project, and you would like to stuff it with the right people, a recommender can help greatly, which is exactly what happened here in that case, which strategically, of course, also increased competitiveness of better reuse of existing knowledge assets. So I give you a brief demo of a system which kind of simulates that situation. It's called the HR Recommender. You can try it out on your own if you like. It's on the web. You will find it on our website. Here's the URL. And yeah, you can log in as one of those persons. Let's say I'm Teresa. And what happens here is the person will be linked to other people who have similar skills, similar topics of interest in mind, will get linked to projects and open positions. So this is just the first visualization of these recommendations done automatically in the background. Actually, this is based on text analytics. Teresa's resume got analyzed, and then by that, the system can come up with suggestions. So here you can also filter out, let's say, projects, and you see here the recommendations. Let's say Teresa says, well, I'm no longer interested in technologies like SQL. I really want to develop my career further as a data scientist. You see here how things get re-ranked. And the beauty of that approach is that it also recognizes links between content which literally doesn't speak about the same thing. So explicitly, you wouldn't find anything which things have in common, but indirectly, and that's driven by the knowledge graph, the links can be recognized. And the next one is Customer 360. So that's an example taken from furniture industry. A large retailer of furniture is using such graph technologies to drive the or to enhance the user experience. So product information is enriched with knowledge about the products in the background. By that, the decision making of the customers can be assisted. There are topic pages which are dynamically generated by the system, so people can see also background information around all the different products this retailer offers to the customers. This is highly automatically done using the knowledge graph, which puts together all the different repositories. First of all, the product catalog, and then the different knowledge assets around the products. There could be some, that's just a screenshot of a kind of a simulation, a demo was available on the web of our website. So here, let's assume you have chosen, in that case, cheese, not furniture. You would get instantly recommendations of similar products, or also of complementary products. And by that, the customer can bundle up or assemble actually the products, put them together to solve a particular problem. Next one is Product 360. So I take an example from pharmaceutical industry. So here, obviously, knowledge about products is essential to get new drugs approved. You also need to understand what has been done in the past, what has been claimed to be correct in the past by maybe our researchers, what kind of articles have been published around those new products we have developed. And all that has to be put together into one. So during this approval process, obviously the knowledge workers in the pharmaceutical industry have a strong need to pull together information from different repositories in order to shorten the time until new drugs get approved. Could look like that. So that's a sample application. Someone is currently writing those documents for FDA, let's say, and then we would like to find information about a question like that. Yeah. And then the system will try to understand the search intent, come up with questions which have been formulated already in the past, just making sure you give the same answers, not contradictory to what you come up in that case, associated documents, and then again, maybe some associated experts. You could ask directly, what should be written down here to make the probability as high as possible to get the products approved. So that's another example. Next one would be Market 360. Here, I took an example from also publicly available website, which is Health Direct Australia, very comprehensive platform, everything about health information for the Australian citizens, but of course also very highly relevant for anyone not living in Australia. So what happened here is more than 200 content repositories got connected using a knowledge graph. The knowledge graph drives the search experience, brings around the topics all the content pieces together. So it's no longer organized in silos. It's really organized around the actual topics. And that's the beauty of this portal. You can try out on your own. You will find all kind of medicines, therapies, services. There's also a symptom checker, which is basically driven by the knowledge graph. You can imagine, depending on the symptoms, different questions have to be asked and so on. So here, for instance, you see a topic, and here you see related topics. Also, all the links are generated dynamically, so you can read across the different repositories. But again, as an end user, you actually don't see anymore the repositories. That's not so important how those got organized. It's more following the logics of the reader, how you would traverse this network of things if you want to get informed about a particular disease or a symptom, and etc. So I will now close this part of this forum. So my part now will be finished with just a quick recap. We're talking about knowledge graphs, and knowledge graphs, you have to take a closer look to what that really is. So I've said already, it's not just visualizing how things are related to each other. It's also not just bringing terms next to each other, like a tag cloud. It's a little bit more than that. So it really consists of a central building block, which is the conceptual model and the linguistic model. So here you really create concepts related to each other. You put the terminology next to it, but it's not just the terminology, it's not just the labels, it's really about relations. You can classify the relation types, you can classify the things, you use ontologies for that, but of course also taxonomies. And this part of the knowledge graph then makes it possible to automatically create links between the different content building blocks and data sets you probably have down in your existing infrastructure. So actually you create what you could call a virtual data or content graph, which is created quite automatically. Tagging plays an important role in that case, but anything which happens down here automatically can be controlled up here by the conceptual and linguistic model of your knowledge domain. Like Joe already mentioned, Eurovoc would be one way to get started, and you can start to enrich that with your own concepts and terminology. And on top of this graph, you put your AI applications like recommender services, search services, etc. And in order to get there, there's sequences. Typically, we partition them into crawl, walk, run, fly. You see, you always have to start with taxonomies, ontologies, and content types and structure. And then many things and more will get automatically done, like the tagging, the footprinting, as we call it, to make this rich information around the business objects, like in the HR recommender, then build such systems on top. And strategically, you can reach this level of Enterprise 360 after a while. Here's a couple of steps to get there. Here are tooling tool sets like Pool Party needed. Typically with Excel, we would not recommend to create your knowledge graph, as you can imagine. So you need some more sophisticated tools running on graph databases typically. So here are several steps and user interfaces. This is what Joe has already presented. That's the platform, or one of the platforms on the market, which can be used for that purpose. Okay, so this is a hopefully interesting introduction of a couple of use cases. And now Andre will take over and will walk us through some more cases in manufacturing automotive industry.
Thank you, Andreas. So now we go into manufacturing and automotive industry and explore some use cases. So why is there actually a need for intelligent content solution? And what drives the whole industry? So we have new products on the market actually for quite a while, and they have disrupted the manufacturing industry. And we specifically experienced that in Germany in the automotive industry, how Tesla is impacting the whole change of this industry segment, not just due to the electric vehicle and the transition from combustion to CO2 neutral driving, but because it's a connected vehicle and it's providing a different driver and user experience. And there are other appliances or applications, tools on the market that go in a similar direction, like on the right side, this Samsung smart fridge. And we just expect with that connected world that actually our products more or less speak with us, or the user interface of the product speak with us, or the application, the mobile device speaks with us. Sorry, mixing up here a little bit with my screen. Here, sorry for that. Pressed the wrong button. So that we expect that a different type of active delivery, proactive delivery of content. So if we look into the manufacturing industry and what is the actual difference between a company like Tesla and the classic manufacturing model. So if we look on, you can take an automotive manufacturer, you could take a manufacturer of agricultural machine, construction machines. They all have the similar model that there is an OEM that is pretty product centric, is innovating products, bringing their products to the market, and they use the sales channel and also the service channel is through retailers. So they have partners that they train, that know their products, and they sell with their knowledge those products to the customers, and they also maintain the products with the customers. And a platform operator is actually working differently because they have a platform, they have direct access to the customer and have therefore direct view on the customer, on the behavior of the customer, and they use this knowledge that they gain by tracking how the customer is using the product. They use that knowledge to provide services to vendors that they can then offer through that platform. So an example is, for instance, BMW has been one of the first automotive manufacturers that started a couple of years ago with their connected drive platform. And based on that platform, they started to change the model by providing vendors access to the data that they collect from customers. So the customer have to agree that their data can be used so that vendors can provide targeted services to that. So what is important to understand, and this is a little bit special to the automotive and to the manufacturing industry, they actually have decades of experiences to create structured content. But this content is product focused because they were developing and innovating products, or this is what they do, that's their core business, and rather customer centric. The reason for that is quite obvious when you look on this graph here. They don't have direct access to their customers. So this is now changing with IoT. An OEM that wants to stay on the market, that wants to lead in its market segment, they have to implement some kind of IoT monitoring. They have to connect their products, and based on that, they offer smart services. And with that IoT platform and the connected products, these OEMs, they become platform providers. They might not change their model, right? They still need retailers. They might still take advantage from those retailers to provide services, but their customers, now that they have connected products, they expect that the OEM, the product provider, provides added value, proactive services for the connected products. So they expect if I have a certain problem with my product that is monitored, that I get proactive guidance how to solve that problem, either by myself or with the help of a retailer. So actually, there's these expectations from customers, but there's also the OEM that can take the advantage of, it doesn't really make sense to just run such a platform. It's the chance to start new business models and creating revenue streams by providing smart services and hereby also transforming the after-sales experiences. So now I'm going into an example. So how could such a smart service look like for a customer, an operator, or a service technician? That's a different access to content. So actually, it's the person itself that opens an application, and so the service technician or the operator, and what they see in that application is their own products, right? So it starts with the persona who is operating or owning a product, operating and owning or servicing that product with a specific product line. So there's a lot of product data that are related to such a product. The important thing is on the manufacturers, they have a huge data set already in their product lifecycle management systems with a lot of knowledge, structured knowledge about the configuration of their products, because it's not just a simple product. This product has variants, has a certain configuration, this product is with the monitoring platform monitored and is providing at a certain time a certain parameter, right? This is then triggering a maintenance task because a certain parameter, so in the maintenance plan that's provided, managed in a content management application, that maintenance plan defines after 5,000 hours, a certain maintenance task is required to be executed. And that is actually triggered then by this IoT monitoring because it recognizes that this number has been reached and then starts providing further information when the service technician or the operator clicks on let's do that maintenance and provides targeted information for that specific action that needs to be done. So that's another complexity that needs to be handled by the manufacturers. This could also be related to a specific part with that specific product configuration. So what needs to change is we actually manufacturers who have been very product centric, they now have and they have also managed content along their product structures and aligned with that. Now they have different layers of operations with the IoT monitoring that they need to that they can take advantage from, plus additional the customer data in order to provide direct proactive the content to a certain specific use case and not just provide, let's say, a front-end application where someone is searching content for something. So actually a machine is helping to filter and narrow down to the right piece of content for the right use case. In addition to that, they can, and this comes down to the topic of recommending something or opening to new revenue streams. You would also provide with that an information, right? A recommendation to the service technician, to the operator, because there is a campaign out there from the part sales that actually that filter that the operator or the service technician is currently maintaining, that there is a new filter available that has a longer, a better characteristics, right? And you actually publish a piece of content and give the recommendation that you can change this new filter type. So this is something that manufacturers companies do already with, for instance, their spare part catalog that they have out there. But someone needs to actually go into that spare parts catalog and see, and then because they would need a new filter, and then they would get the information. Okay, that filter is now replaced, or I could use another one. But with this, we could, in the context of maintaining, we could recommend to replace a filter because it provides added value, because it has a longer lifetime due to new technology, and would therefore save time for the customer. So you can actually communicate value with that approach. After that is replaced, then it's, and that's also part of the integration. This is then actually managed with the digital twin of the product. So let's look at the application landscape at the manufacturer. So what does that mean if someone wants to provide this kind of new experience to a service technician or to an operator? There's a lot of information already available, and Andreas has mentioned this data foundation, which is pretty mature in most of the manufacturing companies. So they have PLM applications and product configurators where they manage all their product knowledge, and of course they have manage customer data, and they manage actually also, in order to manage their content and create their content in line with the product configuration, at least to a certain extent, they have to integrate product knowledge already with the content management to provide operational repair and maintenance information or spare parts information. But this is then actually sent to a content delivery portal, and on that content delivery portal, a user via mobile access or web access is then searching for content. And of course, capabilities like faceted search, or even an option to search for content for a specific vehicle identity number is already possible with the depending on what kind of data structures companies manage in their PLM application, and link them with the content management. But looking on service operation and how service operation is impacted by an IoT platform. So imagine if someone would be out there and has a problem that he cannot solve by himself and needs to call the service help desk. And this service help desk is actually, then he needs to create a service ticket. And by taking advantage of the customer data, assigning that to the customer, and then needs to create a work order, and this work order needs then to be, and the right service technician needs to be identified. It needs to be assigned to a specific product. The set of tasks needs to be identified, and then the detailed service information in order to provide that to the service technician, or the service technician has, after he has received the task, search for what he actually has to be done in detail. So this is usually manual work, or work that needs to be collected and put together by a service management. So now imagine this process needs to be followed with an IoT monitoring. So you have a monitoring out there for a product, and that product with a sensor triggers an event that a certain action has to be taken, either for maintenance, which is not that urgent, but has to be done. But it could also be something has broken, and an immediate action has to be taken place because this after sales or this OEM has a service contract for product availability with the customer. So there is urgent activity required, and if you get this from a whole bunch of products out there, this could become a scalability problem. So it is recommended to automate in that direction, to automate from two directions, actually from the inside. so that you can put together the information in a say assisted way, and also to save time for the service technician to collect the information. So how can that be done? It can be done by integrating the information elements, the information silos, into actually in a knowledge graph, a semantic AI application that you use as an enterprise middleware. So that means there's no one-to-one connection of information from the PLM system to content management. You merge and bring that all together into a knowledge graph, and that is then used by the different applications. And you extend the content creation and management area by a content as a service approach. So the content actually sits there and provides an API that is also using the semantic AI capabilities in order to filter the content by front-end application. And therefore, you change your content management into a content as a service approach. And it allows to manage the actual after-sales content provision into an after-sales experience management by taking the actual user that is working in after-sales, the service management, the service technician, the operator, or even the human-machine interface into account and query for the specific use cases that are relevant for the specific persona and for the specific channel via this approach. And this way you can really deliver intelligent content in a as a service approach. So, and this way, actually a trigger could help to automate the creation of a service ticket and also help to create work orders, either AI assisted, or at least AI assisted, maybe automated in order if that is set up in an appropriate way. So how could such a content solution architecture look like? How can it be built? Andreas has mentioned already the foundations for that. Now looking into an architecture at a manufacturing company. So what they actually have in place is, and this is they are not starting at zero, right? They have their taxonomies already available with their product lifecycle management, their product configuration. And they could start using that in a knowledge graph, and with the Pretty and Docs applications that Joe has presenting at the beginning, that we enable in the component content management system, smart metadata tagging. We can actually use the existing content. So doing providing this new experience doesn't mean that all the content that is available, that has been created over decades, needs to be recreated again. You could actually use that content and then start tagging it with the intelligence that you manage in a knowledge graph, and leverage actually what you have and just provide it in a different way to the outside in a as a service approach. And then on the experience management layer, you could use the semantic AI capabilities to provide the right content for the specific use cases. And that can be enriched with CRM data, with the IoT monitoring data, and even the document repository could be, with text mining capabilities that Poolparty provides. Could be tagged or could be analyzed and then afterwards tagged with the application. And there's still options to orchestrate the linked data. So this is the architecture. So I would like to close my session with a summary. So knowledge graphs actually enable manufacturers to merge information silos, or let's say information that is currently managed in silos, and manage cross-link knowledge about products, customers, and operations. So it's taking away from, or it is extending the current product-centric view towards customers and operations in terms of lifetime operation with connected products. They enable manufacturers to leverage the product-centric intellectual property for high-value customer interaction with this kind of targeted experiences and an intelligent content solution architecture as described here. They actually help to upgrade the customer and after-sales experience to an Industry 4.0 experience. So that was it from my side. I would now like to hand back to Matthias for Q&A.
Yeah, hello. Perfect. Thank you so much to all the three presenters. I think we already get a few questions in our chat. And Andreas, you already started to reply to some of those. I think one that could be that was brought up by Pierre-Yves is very interesting towards Joe. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I was speaking about intelligent content or intelligent marketing, which might be different. Would you like to take that, Joe? Or I think you're on mute. Oh, no. Yeah, so good.
Not sure I completely understood the question, to be honest. Could you read it again? Sorry.
Yeah, it is basically, it was asking you whether, when you were talking about intelligent content, whether you talked as well about intelligent marketing and if there is a difference between the two. And my understanding is this is way more applicable across many different use cases, not only marketing. But yeah, up to you.
Okay, interesting question. I mean, let's see. First of all, a disclaimer, as I'm not, a pure marketer by career, there may indeed be something that's called intelligent marketing that I'm not aware of. But I think to take the question as I can, the term intelligent content did kind of come about in a landscape where it was both about enablement content and kind of marketing content, and often both of those kinds of content about the same product, if that makes sense. So that was the kind of the landscape when this evolved. So I think it was very much drawing on those themes of kind of, if you like, headless architecture, about delivering different flavors even of the same piece of content to different channels and so on. So you might have like an article, which can be a long article, a short article, it can be a standalone video, it can generate a tweet, and all of those kinds of things. So that kind of aspect as well was kind of rolled into it, I guess. But just to say, I think it's a generic technique, and as you implied, Matthias, that can be applied for marketing purposes, but equally for organizations that have their marketing sorted out or have no need of marketing because that's just not what they do, and then it becomes very much about the content to make a different kind of decision. It's something that you do with your job, or how to put some guidelines into practice or use a machine or whatever it is. So interesting question though.
Yeah, and I think, Andreas, you addressed that with so many different use cases in different industries and stakeholder groups. And I think as well with the deep dive from André, looking at the application in an engineering environment, so really far the other end of the marketing perspective, I think the general applicability of these techniques and approaches is quite clear. So this definitely has its living in marketing, but it is much broader and much more a core capability that spans multiple industries and multiple use cases. Yeah. Is there any other questions that we should address with our panel here?
Maybe jumping in here.
Yeah.
Hi, Matthias. This is Martin, Semantic Web Company. I collected questions, but a lot has been discussed already in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question myself, if I would like to rephrase that usually always comes up when you speak about semantic AI and knowledge graphs and intelligent content. If I want to start such a project, where shall I start? Because it's something new, a lot of departments are involved, looks like. So maybe Andreas, Andre, Joe want to react on that. If I'm the one now starting such a project, where shall I start? What are the right steps to go?
Well, I can start. I think what you need to have a concrete need to start with, because I think kind of starting on a old vision, let's say. So of course the end vision is this what Andreas said, the 360-degree enterprise, right? But I think starting at looking into the manufacturing industry, where we have quite a good view already on the 360-degree product view, extending that towards the customer and combining this is providing value. So can you now have a 360-degree view on the customer right away? I think that's most probably not, but you can start, right, with certain personas. You can start with the personas and their main use cases, and develop then and integrate information that's most probably already available in the company, and integrate that into the knowledge graph and start using it. I think that's one approach. So start small with a specific use case and extend. The other approach could be to use standards, right, that are available on the market. So in the technical communication industry, there is a standardization initiative with called IRRDS, Intelligent Information Request and Delivery Standard, that could be used in order to have a framework of a knowledge graph, an ontology, that you could then extend and enrich with the knowledge that's already available in the company. So that standard, for instance, is not meant to to replace what's there. It's actually there to provide an ontology framework and then integrate the information that is already there. So that's the two thoughts that I have in that regards.
I'd like to add one other aspect. There's a technique in knowledge modeling which helps to scope the domain quickly, because at the end you need a knowledge graph which contains the information in order to give answers to questions. So that's basically what we like to achieve. And so one way moving forward really is to start to list key questions. So which kind of key questions would end users in general, like also internal users and so on, which questions would they like to get answered? And when I say I would like to get an answer, I don't mean a bunch of documents anymore. So it's really, I ask a question and I get an answer. Like Alexa, Siri, and all the others are doing. And this is where we want to go. So we want to use all this great content we have in place to produce such systems at the end. And Joe was already pointing out, chatbot is one way moving forward. I would like to add also question answering engines. Chatbots are a little bit more, this conversational AI. They're always trained upon a certain behavior, but in our domain, typically we have highly technical content, and there's a lot of knowledge in this content, and it's not structured in a sense yet that it can be used to build question answering engines. But with a knowledge graph in place, which is put on top of this rich content, you build this infrastructure, and it will save a lot of time if you have that finally in place.
Yeah, there was, I think, Pierre, if you want to rephrase your question, Pierre said this is going back to the question on the question on market application in marketing. Pierre said, I mean, what about if the content is aimed at growing knowledge? Marketing is decision to buy. Growing knowledge is something else. I think this is yeah.
It's an interesting one. If I could maybe start that. I mean, I guess these days especially, growing knowledge is always for a purpose. In the worlds that I kind of live in, I mean, I think, you know, of course, there's a great kind of case for simply libraries and exploring knowledge generally. But I guess when it comes to commercial content management software, those kind of worlds, generally people want to see a bit more of a return for their investment in such software. And so, yes, it very much involves knowledge of all sorts, but it tends to be somewhat purposeful, as in what is the decision that you're trying to make with that knowledge. But I guess from my point of view, I would just use that to cap the great ideas from both Andre and Andreas on how to get started is simply to say, you can never start too early in trying to figure out what are those decisions that your end users are trying to make, right? So Andre, you described it as kind of use cases and personas. Andreas, you're talking about the questions, and however we describe it, you know, it's always about what are the decisions, what's the world that they live in? Because again, the hallmark of unintelligent content, if you like, is that it just feels like a very rigid view of your own organization and not the world of your users. It's uncontextual in that sense. So for me, it's always been something very purposeful, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions? I think.
I don't know if I can react, Matthias.
Yeah. Hello.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everybody. Thank you very much. And first of all, please apologize. My camera is out of service, and so you can't see me, but I hope you can hear me.
Very well.
I'm sorry I asked all these questions because today my point of interest is related to a magazine that we are currently publishing in Belgium. And indeed, we are really looking to, to technologies to help us to grow content in, I would say, in an intelligent way. We are active in all this domain related to ESG criteria and all these bio domain, which is very at purpose for the moment. But when you see that different newsletters from many publishers, you see a lot of things, but this is not always from quality. I mean, you see many subjects and it's just nothing, it's just greenwashing. So my question, when I try to ask you, and I'm very familiar of that world, I mean, I'm coming from Proximus in Belgium, I'm coming from Lux Provide in Luxembourg. So I've worked in all these companies and I really understand what you are explaining related to this domain and intelligent content. I mean, I understand how to use it in a decision-making process, in a IoT process, in a production process, in a marketing process. I fully understand that. But how to use these technologies to produce, I would say, a quality content. I'm sorry, I would like to ask you this question in a better way, and I don't find the words, so please apologize for that.
I'd like to take that one because that also is something which has occupied my thoughts for many, many years. And when you start to create, let's say, a blog post, somewhere, or a tweet, So how can you make sure this has some quality? And I think what scientific work means is creating more of true facts. So this is what science does, right? And for me, this is one of the main components of good content. It should be fact-based. It should be true. What does it mean? How can we help here? And if you think about a very, very concrete scenario, you have an editor, you start creating a new content piece, let's say a blog post for let's say a news portal, yeah? So, and next to the content, if you constantly get, let's say, reference documents shown up, yeah, where you can put a link to and take out the statements from there just to underpin your new content. That would mean that you create content which is embedded in a large context, which also makes by that a little bit more sense probably to the readers. Of course, I'm not saying that's always the case, because sometimes you have to create new content, completely innovative stuff, yeah, which is probably totally disconnected from the rest. Some call that arts, yeah. So could be a different type of great content. But we should really make a distinction. What is the purpose, yeah, of creating this content, this piece of content? If I really want to build on top of existing content and facts, which is already validated and approved, then I should really follow this principle to create like a graph of content pieces, and not just creating yet another content piece which is just disconnected from the rest. So that would be one description or one definition from my side, what great content really is. It should be connected to a lot of other artifacts. Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Thank you very much for your clarification, Andreas.
Okay, thank you.
Matthias, we cannot hear you, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I have assumed it. We're coming to the end from our value cast from a timing perspective. And thank you again to the speakers and to Philip for organizing this value cast. I would like to close it down with, I asked all of our three speakers to give us, if there's three takeaways or two takeaways to go out of this presentations, what would this be? And I think Joe made a fantastic statement about to define intelligent content and intelligent content management that is much more comprehensive than many other that I've been seeing. When your content helps each of us make a decision quickly, smartly, and safely, it's intelligent content. But the focus is on the creators who can smoothly connect the stories and concepts and data to build such an experience. And that defines much better, I think, what we understand as intelligent content management. And underlying, Andreas elaborated on the basic functions of the knowledge graph that are really changing the way in how content is developed in organizations. And we're really in a kind of an pivotal disruptive point of not thinking about documents anymore, but really thinking about the knowledge and the elements that are building this knowledge in its interrelated connectivity. And if we apply that to an industry case, I think André really showed us how this can actually break the silos that these contents are living in, taking in a knowledge graph to kind of combine across different applications and make the connections that then come to intelligent user experiences and help these manufacturers actually to use what they've built up as an IP and drive that into customer interaction. And that really spans not only the kind of the product life cycle from begin to end and defines a bit what we say with Industry 4.0. I hope this was giving you inspiration, and there is more to find out. And we've already talked about the book, the Knowledge Graph Cookbook from that as editor Andreas is responsible for. And we do have an event that is coming up to the Expert Summit, that will happen on 8 to 9 December 2021. So you're heartily invited to deep dive further with us into this. So thank you very much for your time and being with us in this ValueCast.